Yep, you got it. I can see it.
Yep.
I'm not
Okay.
at home, but
But you can see it. You can see my email though.
yes. If you click that show password button.
What's our topic today?
Listings.
Listings.
Yes.
We like those.
And this is how to get through a listing. So I'm going to share some things. If you're in here, you have a packet. I actually want to grab a packet so I can see what you're reading. Okay. We'll start with this guy. So when I switch over to this one, can you guys still see it? It'll say listing checklist.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So this is the listing checklist. I'm going to get actually another one first. We will go over. Sheets. Sheets. I have lots of paperwork. I can forward any of this stuff to you guys, and I can also print it for you. We'll go over listing procedures first. That's the first sheet that you guys have that is on the screen right now. So day one, with your listing presentation, you'll actually probably meet with me on your first listing prior to getting to this point anyway, so we can go over it. I went over with an agent this morning, and I think I went over one yesterday with another agent. So agents are definitely getting a lot of listing appointments right now. The first thing you're going to want to do is prepare for your appointment. So get your forms together, assume that you have the listing. Just go in there knowing that you're the agent they're going to pick, have that attitude, and normally they'll pick you. Usually they will. Sometimes you're up against other agents, so keep that in mind, but always bring the forms anyway, because the ideal is to walk away with the listing signed. And a lot of times with listings, you are actually doing a physical wet signature rather than a digital. Sometimes they're digital, just depends on the situation. Prepare a CMA ahead of time, even if it is something that you haven't seen. It's ideal if you can see the house first and then do a CMA afterwards. But if you're going on a listing appointment, at least do some ahead of time work, pull up a few things, tax records, order a trio from title. There's actually a sheet that I put in here. You need to move this guy out of the way. This listing checklist will help you prepare for the listing itself. And I also have a listing.
It's in this packet.
Yes, it's this in the packet. Get past that listing that I put in there. Yes, you see that one. And then there's one right behind it, the pre-listing checklist I'm going to put up here. This one. Take this pre-listing checklist with you to your listing, because these are a lot of really good questions. You can add to it, make your own. I can send this one to you if you want to use this one. It is all the questions that you're possibly going to need to ask your seller while you're there. Why are you selling? What's your timeline for selling? It will really help you with this morning's appointment with an agent who's going on a listing appointment. They're not sure when they're going to list, anywhere from now till summer. So this can help them and you decide what the best time is to sell. Jump back to the procedures. Bring a seller net sheet too. You can prepare your own. This is going to be the cost for the seller to sell their home. This includes your commission and also their closing costs. Every title company can give you a really pretty version of it. They have apps that you can download and you can print from there, or they also have, if you haven't already contacted title companies, do that and just see what they have to offer. See what their websites are like. One of the first things that I do is go in and log into First American's site, and you can look up all the past sales for that property. When they've refied it, there's all kinds of information in there that you can look up. So I do that. I also pull up a tax assessment. So I will go into RMLS and show you that. The very first thing that I do with a listing appointment is come into RMLS and pull up the tax information for the property. So I have a property in this paperwork for you two that are sitting in here for a property that I sold a few years ago. It is right behind the listing procedures. It's on Bachelor. And I picked this one because this one had omitted property, so I can talk to you about what omitted property looks like. But say they call you and say, I want to go on a listing appointment, come into RMLS first, put in the address of the property and see if it's had any past sales. You can tell a lot about a house by doing that. You can see, oops, I put in the wrong address.
Is that supposed to project as well, Chantel, on the screen?
I don't know why it's not on
Oh, okay.
here. I think Austin said that everybody else can see it, but we can't see it for some reason on this screen. But you guys have all the
Yeah,
paperwork
we
that
do,
I'm
yes.
pulling up on here. I have a 0 that I shouldn't have. Okay.
Okay.
So this property I sold actually to my ex-husband a few years ago. And if I were listing it and it wasn't my past listing, I would come in here, just look at past photos, see how long ago it sold. A lot of homes will change a lot, even in a 5-year period. It could be really horrible looking, or it could be way better than what the listing looks like, or it could be the same. But you'll at least have a feel for what the house looks like before you get there. And then once you've done that, you can also come in, actually, let me jump over here. This little H button, which you guys can't see, but if you were in the listing, it doesn't even show on the paper one, but it is right under the MLS number. There's an H button. That's a history button where you can click on it and see the history of the house, when it's sold, all the data changes, prices, all kinds of information about it. We'll jump back over. That's another, just more research that you want to look up. Down a little bit further, there's a tax ID number in that first blue section for people who are on the Zoom. In here with you guys, it is the first property details section. Click on that tax ID number. That will bring you to the tax assessment, which is in this paper document. It's right behind. It's this one. This is going to tell you property details about the property. So this one has been updated, but when I first sold this house, we walked through it, and the upstairs, it's a daylight basement. The upstairs was just builder. It was beautiful. When we went downstairs into there's more square footage down there. There's probably another 1,000 square feet downstairs. There are 2 bedrooms, a living room, dining or kitchenette, and a bathroom down there. The quality down there didn't match upstairs. So I could tell, and you want to know this for your sellers too, I could tell that it had been done after, not by the same builder, probably. And for me, it just spurred, I wonder if this has omitted property, because this was probably completed. It was only a 5-year-old house at the time. It was all completed after closing. So the county probably didn't know it was down there. And once the listing goes in here, it's going to flag the county that there's additional finished square footage down there and their property taxes are going to go up. That's what omitted property is. We have a whole class on it, hopefully coming up pretty soon. There's a lot to that topic, and it's really good for you to know both as a listing agent and as a buyer, because if you have a property that has omitted property on it, it could be like they added a shop and the county doesn't know, or they added an addition and the county doesn't know. Anything that will increase the market value of the property is a way for the county. Clackamas County and Multnomah County are pretty hot and heavy over trying to find ways of doing it. The reason for it is that back in 1985, they put in Measure 50, I think it was called, that made it so that they could not increase property values more than 3% per year. So this is the county's way of pulling market value up and being able to come after you for more property taxes, because they decide that if your house is remodeled, now it's worth more, and now they can charge you more. It could be as simple as a remodel. We got hit with our house 5 years ago when it was just starting. We got a tax bill in the mail for $379 for the previous year that was unpaid. And when I called, they said, "Oh, that's omitted property. Is your kitchen and bathrooms remodeled?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm a realtor again. We didn't know about this back then. They kind of snuck this under the radar for us. And she said, "Well, that's where the extra cost is coming from." And I said, "Well, it was done a long time ago." They can go back 5 years or to the date you bought it. So in our case, county didn't find out about it until after we bought it. So they could only go back to the date we bought it, which was a year. But if you've owned the house for 5 years and they find out about it, or 10 years, they can go back the full 5 years and assess you for all of that if they find out the work was done however far back. Yeah, it's kind of it gets a little scary. And if you don't know about it and then your buyers get hit with it, they'll come back on you and say, "Why didn't you know?" And then same with sellers. When you list property and you put on there remodeled, or you have a difference in square footage, I think they hire people at the county to look up our listings and see those. And then if the letter comes out during the term of the listing, you're going to potentially have 5 years back of property taxes that will be due, or omitted property. On a high-end home, that could be a lot of money. Dwight had one a couple of years ago that got hit with that. The letter came out during the listing, so they could go back the whole 5 years, and the buyer didn't want to take on, I think it was $50,000 or $60,000 in omitted property. So they walked on it because that's a lot of omitted property. Plus their taxes are going to go up for the next year. So in Steve's case, their property taxes, I called the county and said, there's additional living space down there that's been all finished. Do you guys know about it? No, they didn't. So I told them what it was. Now it flags it. The letter's going to come out. They are going to come after it. It didn't come out prior to closing though, but it did give us as buyers opportunity to be able to say, how much more are you going to charge us for this? And they told us it would be another 1,500 potentially, ended up only being 900. So that was good, but omitted property is another thing you want to look at. So look at your square footage, your bedrooms, bathrooms. The original tax assessment on this, when I looked at it, said it was a 1-bedroom. That's how I knew that it would be omitted property because it's actually a 3-bedroom plus an office. So look up these two things would be the first thing. Calling it a trio. The trio is really important because at the bottom of that trio, it says who actually owns the property. It will say a grantee. So on the top of this tax assessment, you can see Steve and Jennifer Karen, but once in a while, the data entry will leave one owner off. When I bought my house, only I showed up. My husband didn't show up on this part of it, but he did show up on the trio down at the very bottom. And eventually they updated it and both of us were on there. But another scary story on that. We had an agent in here a few years ago, listed a property, didn't look at the trio vesting deed, thought that only the husband was on the deed. So she listed it with only his name on it, got into contract, and then the sellers were just decided, we don't want to move. We don't want to sell this house anymore. Seller doesn't really have any outs, not a lot of outs anyway in a situation. So she said, well, you can't because you're in contract. And they said, well, only one of us signed and 2 of us are on it. So she had spent, I think, $2,000 probably paying for staging and all kinds of things that she potentially was going to be out. In this case, because there was a sale on it and title didn't catch it either, title actually reimbursed her for, I think, most of those fees that because the seller wasn't going to pay for those. They didn't have a valid contract to start with, but she didn't have an agreement saying that they would reimburse her if it sale failed and they pulled it off the market. So it did sale fail. Luckily, the buyers decided not to come after them. They were really lucky there and it worked out for everybody, but that's why it's really important that you look at that vesting deed and see who actually owns the property. That same thing could apply to kids that are selling a house for their parents. If they don't have authority, it might be in probate. We had that issue where it started to go into probate. So the kids knew they would have authority to sell, but they don't have it until the tail end of probate. They have to be assigned as the personal representative and they weren't. And they wanted to list the property. So you just have to make sure who owns it. Very important. I'm going to jump over to the listing checklist. Actually, let me jump back over to listing procedures. Is it hard to hear?
No,
you're doing good.
Has this afternoon.
What?
Mark has this afternoon.
Oh, at noon. Okay, we'll hurry.
So
Then.
if you
Yeah,
could-
35 minutes left.
10, 15, or 5 minutes before, so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to jump through this as fast as possible.
We forgot about it. We have to figure it out.
Speed it up. Okay. Go through this listing procedures. I'm going to go really fast on it because we are kind of short on time, but arrive early, dress very professionally. Sounds like something that I shouldn't have to tell you, but some people don't dress professionally. Bring a listing presentation if you have one, or at least a CMA or a combination of a CMA listing presentation. Cloud CMA is great for that. If you don't want to actually do a whole listing presentation, you can kind of combine it in Cloud CMA. So your listing presentation is part of that.
What
And
is a
again, bring
listing- What's in a listing presentation that's different than a CMA?
It's all about you and why they should hire you,
Okay.
what you have to offer. The Clark Group has a great one and they're really good about letting you look at it. So, and he teaches that class. I know Alex did it too. There's 2 actually cellular classes. So lots of people in here will let you look at their listing presentations. And then you can just make it whatever style you want. Interview the homeowners with this questionnaire that I showed you, the pre-listing checklist. That filling out the property disclosures can actually be done through zip forms, and we have a template that we can send you that you can put into DocuSign now. So there's been a problem with getting it to be fillable for the client through e-signatures, but we have resolved that. So we can help you with that if you need that. ask what special features the home has, also what's been recently repaired, replaced. It would be a good idea to come up with something that is like a checklist for them. And there are lots of things. You can go into mykw.kw into the internet and then the resources section, documents, I think it is. And there are a lot of different listing things that you can, and buyer things actually, that you can pull out and put into your listing presentation and your CMA. But a checklist would be good for, they're going to ask you, what do I need to do to my house to get it ready? So a checklist based off of that. And another one also on just the basic things, recommend that they have their furnace serviced, that their water heater is strapped, double strapped and in a pan or off the floor. Either one works. That their smoke detectors and their CO detectors are in, because those, it won't pass an appraisal if that's not done. And then just the basic things about a home, that if they have Easter egg colors all over, it might be a good idea to paint it. Not everyone will be willing to do that, but it's really hard for a buyer to come in there and see a house that has multiple crazy colors all over the place. Pulling down their pictures off the walls so that it's not so personal, and that way people can come in and picture it themselves. Staging works really well because, like, I don't know how many people were in Jenny's class yesterday, but she mentioned that, which hit me pretty hard. It was a really good way to put that to a seller, that people want to come in there and fantasize what it looks like, not what it's actually going to look like. But if you make this little fantasy for them on what it looks like in perfect conditions, it makes them want to buy the house more. And it can get you a little bit more money for a house, whether they stage it living there or not. Masha's really good at staging, so that's kind of a little bit of what you do. Kind of a touch on that. You can hire people actually also that go in there and talk about pre-staging it. So I think it's $180 fee to hire somebody to just go in there and say, this is what you should do. And then you could hire a staging company or not. I have seen people stage their homes and be living in them.
Who did you say was really good at staging?
Masha, which is, you can't see her, but she's sitting in here. You have some staging background, kind of. It's kind of a.
I do more hard surfaces, so, but I do help with that, with the like more rearranging and minimizing. Yeah.
So you would be perfect for someone who doesn't want to pay for staging, but wants to.
Like a consultation.
That consultation.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have a fee for that?
Yes.
You would be, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, on our Facebook page, if you put that up, people like to have
No,
that,
I love that
especially
idea.
for someone who's living in the home.
Yes, I think that's perfect.
Yeah. I know a lot of us would love to have that, obviously, they're asking.
That's no problem. Yeah, I love that.
So if you have the listing, sign the listing paperwork, have the seller fill out the property disclosures. You can leave them, but in paper, so they can spend some time getting to know them. They're 7 pages long. You cannot help them with them in any way, shape, or form. So if they ask you to check the boxes because they're too shaky, you can't do it. They need to find someone else. If they ask you questions about how should I answer this, you can't help them with that. They need to find someone else, a family member or somebody to help them with that. We can't have any liability with that. But if they come back to you and they're missing any check boxes, send it back, have them fill it out again. Same thing applies on the buy side. If you get a set of those, send them back because they need to be completely filled in, even if it's not applicable. Kelly's really pushing for having them, sometimes something won't apply, so people don't check that box. Check it anyway with a not applicable. The biggest spot that they miss is whether or not they're living in the property. It's up at the top of the property disclosures, and there is a set in this packet that you can see. Ask them about what fixtures are not included, what appliances are included, your lockbox. I'm going to really blow through this really fast because we only have about 20 to 25 minutes left, and I want to move on to a couple other pages. Talk about marketing, open houses, your sign location, showing instructions are really important. If there's a tenant in there, you need at least 24 hours. Some people have animals or kids that they need an hour or two of notice. There's also showing time is getting really popular with using, so you can use that. I don't like it personally because I don't get the notifications through my email right now, but it works great for people. Just go on there, pick their time. You can see what other people have picked too, so it makes it much easier for a buyer's agent to find a time that's available. Discuss a possible plan for price decreases. This is really important once you have this. Especially if you have somebody that wants to overprice their home, if you're chasing the market downhill, you're going to lose so much equity because you started too high. This is probably the single biggest conversation to have with somebody, both in price decreases and also setting the price. Setting the price, every market's a little bit different. I know that there's some agents who consistently will underprice something because they want to do a market or do a bidding war. The problem in this market, if you do that, you're never going to get up to where it would have sold if you just put it in a market value price. Everything at market value, not everything, but most things in market value are going well above. In the $400,000 range, I'm seeing like 10 to 15% above asking price. So it's really important that it is priced right. I have a listing in Estacada that beginning of this whole upswing, she wanted to price it at 467. And at the beginning of COVID, that was way too high. But when we came out of COVID, I thought, oh, they're in a bidding war already. There's not enough out there. 467 is going to be great. We'll probably get more than that. Well, they got greedy and they decided that 525 is where they needed to be. Way too high. We couldn't hardly even get anybody to look at it. So by the time they finally came down to 475, where it was more feasible, we sold it for 450 because they started too high in the beginning and people didn't want to spend that. They wasted all this time at the higher value. People can see those decreases in Zillow. So they start to think, well, why is it not worth that price? And so she really kicked herself afterwards and decided that she really should have listened to me. If we sold it or priced it at the 467, it probably would have gone for a little bit more than that, but she lost quite a bit in that. So price it correctly from the start, but do have conversations about, okay, if you decide you have to price higher, we're going to talk every 2 weeks or every week and a half or every week about reducing the price. That way they don't feel like you told them to list at 475. It didn't sell at that. Now you're telling them to reduce it, but they sometimes feel like you promised them that you would get them that higher amount. But if you prep them for that, then it's not such a blow when you ask for that. Discuss your communication plan and have a very good communication plan. Don't leave them hanging. Even a couple of days for a buyer or seller is too long to leave them without communication. They feel like you've abandoned them. So have a pretty regular communication plan. Arrange photography. We have a couple people in the office that do photography, videography. Depends on the type of home that you're doing too, on whether you want to do everything or just some of it. But photography is pretty important. There's nothing worse than a home that I can tell somebody did it from a cell phone and then people just don't even want to look at it in that case. Immediately following taking the listing, upload all your documents to Command and send them to Kelly for review. Enter the listing into RMLS or WV, whatever MLS system you're using for that area. Order the sign installation. The sign can actually be ordered ahead of time, but if you just got the listing, they're going live tomorrow, the sign's not going to probably get there for a couple of days. Just note it in the listing. If you're in an outlying area, it can take up to a week to get a sign out there. So try to plan for that also. You can also call a sign company. If your listing is like 2 weeks out, you can call them and say, I want it delivered on this day and arrange that. Prepare your flyers, deliver to the property. You can either do paper, you can do the perma flyers that sit on there. Those are a good way to go. You can, and I used to not really like the perma flyers, but now you can do a QR code and they can see the price changes. So that's a good way to go. Yeah. Install your lockbox and get keys from your seller. Give signed copies of all the documents to your seller all the way along. Arrange and market open houses. If they're the best time to come online with a new listing is probably Wednesday-ish, midweek, so that you have enough time to plan for an open and get it advertised and get it out there. Ensure that all your marketing is visible too. Zillow every once in a while has issues with getting that updated. So, and there was an open house just recently that didn't get put in for some reason. It was in our MLS, it went to Redfin, but it didn't go to Zillow. And sometimes it can take a while to get that fixed. Especially with Zillow because they're so hard to get a hold of. Prepare your just listed postcard if you're deciding to do that and mail it out to all the neighbors. You can also door knock. Listing maintenance, check in with your sellers regularly, which I said. I'm going to go through these really fast. Once you start getting offers, this is kind of an important one, especially in our market right now with the fair housing laws. If you get multiple offers, it is a great idea to do a spreadsheet. Take the names of the buyers off so that there is clearly no discrimination based off of anything that could be discriminated from any reason we could discriminate. And then show that to them. But you are going to have to show buyers letters. Eventually, you're going to have to show names. But if you've done it that way, you've at least protected yourself as a listing agent from discrimination. If your seller discriminates, if you know that they're discriminating, don't be a part of that. Because you need this clear-cut way to prove that you were not part of discriminating. We had an issue, somebody sued for that just recently. So through RMLS, they put that out. So I do have a spreadsheet I can send over to you, or you can build your own, either one. Respond to all offers in a timely manner. You technically are supposed to reject any offers like on paper. You don't have to reject every single page, just the last page of the offer. It's 11 pages long. So just at least check the last one, have your seller sign it, because it proves that they've seen it and you don't have any issue with anybody coming back saying, I don't think my offer got seen. It is a pain if you have 60 offers like the Milwaukee house that just sold recently. That's going to be a pain in the butt, but it's better to be safe than sorry. You do need to upload all of those offers to Command also a pain in the butt. You can do it all in the same opportunity though. You just make new folders. I don't know how Kelly wants it, but for me, I felt like you could put all of the offers in one folder, not have to put them in all separate, because if you do have 60 offers, you can have 60 folders inside that opportunity. There's a class on opportunities and zip forms and DocuSign, how that works, coming up in 2 weeks. Any questions so far? I know I'm going kind of fast. Normally don't go so fast. But,
Chantal,
yes.
so in the marketing, I remember Melody talking about incorporating our listings into different companies, like Costco and all that, and Walmart.
Oh, yes. I actually have flyers. That's what you two have on your desk. There's Proxio and also our KWLS. Does push them out. KWLS is already automatic with you. If you have a high-end property over 550 though, talk to Austin. He'll get you set up with on our Proxio list. And then your high-end luxury properties will go out even more beyond the Walmart list. But normally, I mean, just through KWLS, it's going out to, I think, over 350 SEOs, Walmart being one of them. And then the Proxio is going across the world. It's going all over the place. So those are good features, especially for luxury homes. That was what I was talking to you about yesterday. Yeah.
What is a KWLS, you said?
It's inside your command. If you go into, it's also in Connect. It's our listing service, our internal listing service. So anytime you list a home in RMLS, it automatically goes in there and then you have access to it, but it is pushing it out to more search engines than other offices would do.
So once you put it in RMLS, it goes also directly to Zillow and Redfin and all that.
Yes.
So it just syndicalizes everything at the same time.
Yes. Zillow can take up to 24 hours for it to take effect, but it does go there. If it takes longer than 24 hours, it's probably something that's wrong on your Zillow and you have to contact them directly, and they are very difficult to get hold of, but they're a necessary evil also. I have a love-hate relationship with them.
Yes.
Offer accepted, open escrow with the title company. Both sides really should be sending everything over. You don't want to get caught not sending something over that was really important. So we used to have more of like sometimes the seller opens, sometimes the buyer opens, but I just recommend everybody sends everything to title. Don't send disclosures. You're only sending the offer, things that have to do with money. They don't need property disclosures. They don't need repair addendums, things like that. Upload to command, complete your broker demand and your command opportunities commission tab get done about a week or two before closing. And I'll help you with those. They can be kind of difficult to fill out. Wait until after you've negotiated repairs before you do that part, because the numbers can change on that prior to. Although the office does want you to do the commission tab right away. I still wait. And I know they said that out loud, so they're going to see that, but it's nice for Heather if you do it right away, because then she knows what's coming in. And if she's planning on going on vacation and you've not filled out your commissions tab, you're probably not going to get paid while she's gone, because she does look at those. She plans to make sure that you're getting paid while she's gone on vacation. And so that's a pretty important one. Obtain pre-approval proof of funds. This one's really important also, especially right now with COVID going on. Some people won't even let you in the door without a pre-approval. And pre-approval is different than pre-qualification. So make sure you're looking at that when you get it. A pre-qualification really doesn't mean anything. They haven't proven that they can buy the house. A pre-approval they have. In high-end homes, you're going to see a lot of times where they are making you give a pre-approval before you can see the home in person. That's really common. Outside of COVID, even they just don't want people traipsing through a $2 million house just to see it. So you need to be a serious buyer. Ensure your earnest money's been deposited. So this is another big one. If your seller wants out, that's the first place you're going to look for an out. That and well, that would really be the only one for a seller that I can think of offhand. The earnest money is due usually on the third day. So if you get in contract on a Monday, then Tuesday's your first day, Wednesday, Thursday by 5 o'clock, that earnest money's due. If it doesn't get there on time, the seller can back out and keep the money. So that's their one out. I have had people call and say, hey, my seller wants out of this deal. They're not happy. We'll look first to see if the earnest money got deposited on time because that's your easiest out. That said, on the buy side, which there's a class on that next week, make sure it's in there because your buyer can lose their deal if they don't get it in on time. It can be fixed really easily with an addendum, but if you're on the sell side, you may not want to ask for the addendum because you may want that out. Schedule your inspections with your seller. The buy side's going to do that on their side, then they're going to call you to see if it works. If it's vacant, it's usually pretty easy. If it is occupied, then there might be a little bit of back and forth to schedule those. And the buyer's agent does attend those start to finish. Typically, the seller's agent doesn't. The seller's agent stays out of all of the inspections. Don't even call the inspectors because those are private inspections between the buyer and their inspection company. And you really don't want to know as a listing agent what's wrong with the house because you have to disclose it. And it could just be an opinion. Every inspection is an opinion. You get different reports from different people. So, but if the buy side does tell you the roof is bad, you have to disclose that going forward that, hey, they told us the roof is bad. You can say, maybe you approve or you agree or you don't agree with it, but you do need to disclose it. Those are considered material facts. So you don't want to withhold any of that. If your client is starting to not want to talk about the things that are wrong with the house, you need to let them know that they have to be disclosed or you're going to cancel the listing. Don't go down with them. You will get sued. And our deductible for our E&O is pretty high and you have to pay the deductible. Well, it's not that high, but it's $10,000. That's a lot of money. That's your commission that you potentially would have to pay. So don't go down with them if that happens. Negotiating repairs, you'll do that part. And scheduling signing. So one really big thing to know at the tail end, be checking in along the way. It is okay to call the lender and get updates on how it's going on that end or the agent. Normally we ask the agent, how's it going? We don't, but you can go around and talk to the lender directly. You want to make sure that CD comes out about a week before closing. So if closing is on a Friday, that CD needs to be out no later than Monday to really make it work. It's possible you could do Tuesday, but they need 3 days to review. So you get it on Monday, even if they open it at 11 o'clock at night on Monday, Monday is the first day and it comes through email. So Monday would be the first day, Tuesday, Wednesday, they could draw docs on Thursday. It's possible that you could get it on Tuesday. Thursday would be the last day and draw docs Friday morning, but you're really pushing the limits and not every deal can same day close. So that would be rough. So be checking on that. That's the biggest thing that I think agents forget is to check on that CD. It's a consumer disclosure. A consumer disclosure. It's it goes to the buyer from the lender, just showing the breakdown of their fees. Doesn't exist if it's a cash deal though. So you don't have to worry about it on a cash deal.
Okay.
But it can be a hang up if we're not watching for it at the end. Typical listing agent duties are coordinating and attending the appraisal appointment. Sometimes the appraiser has a code to get in, so you may not have to do that if it's a vacant house. If it's an occupied house, go with them. You are responsible for the house. Schedule your client signing appointment and attend, although right now we're not allowed to attend with COVID. Review the prelim. Also, make sure you're looking through the prelim and checking through it. Remove the lockbox either prior to closing or after. You're going to negotiate with the other agent on how keys are going to be given. And it's very common to leave the lockbox on, key in it. Seller leaves the keys inside the house, and then the buyer's agent takes them out of the lockbox, gives them to the seller or to the buyer, and then seller comes back selling agent comes back and takes the box off. Be sure to mark your listing pending and sold because you can get fined for not doing this within 24 hours. So, or MLS will come after you for that. Typical buyer's agents are your scheduling appointments and attending the inspection start to finish. Don't leave in the middle. You can't run off to the store because you are responsible for the house. And if an inspector falls off a ladder or something like that and you're not there to help, that's not going to be pretty. Encourage your buyers to attend inspections. Not all companies are letting you attend right now, but they're letting you come at the end and giving you the overview. Some companies don't care and they're letting the buyer be there the whole time. Just coordinate that with the company that you choose. Amerispec is amazing. They do indemnify you up to $1 million as an agent. So they're good. They do all of the inspections also. They just did sewer, radon, and asbestos for me. And it was really nice to have one-stop shopping. Schedule buyer's appointment and attend.
What is their name, Chantal? One more time.
Amerispec.
Amerispec.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're very affordable, so it's nice. And they take credit card over the phone, which also is nice. Instruct your buyers to take the earnest money to title. Don't do it for them. Review the prelim. Also order and deliver the buyer's book. So buyer's book is like a seller's book similarly, kind of. Buyer's book, title will give it to your buyer for free. They'll send it over to them. It has labels, all kinds of different things about the property and the area. So it's kind of a nice little feature and it's free. Title will just do that for your client. You can also get, I think I kind of skipped over that on the top. You can get a seller's book from title also that you put on. Each title company is different. Tycor does a really good job with the book and it's bound. And they used to at least give you a bucket with booties and all kinds of goodies. So they're a good one to go through for a nice little setup. Other companies will just email it and it's your job to print it. So try Tycor out, I think. My two favorite title companies that help us are Tycor, Dennis, and Justin at Old Republic. And then I use First American on the east side, but I can tell you First American just emails stuff over to you for printing. They don't have as much of a production on that. Let's jump over to the pre-listing checklist. So these are some of the questions. Again, there's a bunch on here. Text me if you want copies of this. I'll send it over to you. For you in here, you already got a copy of it. And then the listing checklist itself. So this is the pre-listing prior to the appointment. Get a tax sheet, order the trio, bring your forms, a seller net sheet, a CMA, and your listing questionnaire. You can add as much to this as you want to too. This is going to be part of your listing presentation. And then once the listing is signed, these are the other things that you're going to want to do, which we kind of went over in the other paperwork. Any questions right now? I know we're kind of we have people waiting for the room, so it's going to be a little bit of a short. No. I will go in more in depth in this one-on-one with anybody who's doing a listing coming up. And I had intended to get into forms today and listing types, which only have a couple of minutes. I'll get into listing types. I'm not going to pull it up on here, but there are 3 different types of listings in the agreement. Just a standard listing that's coming up, active listing, that's the most common. We have coming soon, no showings listings. This one has the most rules behind it. It is 21 days is all you get before it goes live. It's getting noisy out there. Can you guys still hear me?
A little bit.
So coming soon, if they have 21 days, you get 1 picture to put in the RMLS. It does feed out to Zillow. You can put a sign up, but you can't advertise it any other way. No.
Sorry, I can hear very well. Sorry.
I'm almost done. I'm trying to rush. So be careful with that one. Excluded from RMLS, this would be an off-market listing. It's not, you cannot advertise it at all, other than it's a pocket listing, kind of like what Jenny was talking about in the meeting today. It's not a bad way to go, but it's not going to get any marketing. So it's going to be the type of listing that you can sell by just talking to people that you know. List price, make sure you're filling out all this paperwork. The biggest things in this paperwork are the backdoor section on here, the how many days it is in. Let me find it. 3rd page, I think it is. But it basically is how many days, if somebody came through during the life of the listing and then they went backdoor to your seller and said, hey, I want to buy this house, but you won't have to pay a commission if you fire your realtor and use me later after. Put in at least like 90 to 180 days on that so that they won't be able to do that for quite a while after. Otherwise, if the seller does sell it to that person within that time frame, you are still owed a commission. I think we're we're kind of out of time. I know we didn't get into as detailed as I wanted to, but if anybody wants to go over these with me one-on-one, just text me and we'll sit down and again, for your first listing, we're going to sit down and go over everything that has to do with that listing in particular also. Any other questions or? We're good. I think we're okay. Should I just X off on here?
Yeah, these are questions.
Okay. Have a good day, you guys.
Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you.